Hello guys and girls, in this video I want to show you a really cool technique when using the quick mask feature inside of Photoshop. Now there are a lot of reasons to use the quick mask, but this particular technique is one that I use quite frequently. Here I have a photograph and I might want to make an adjustment to a particular part of the photo. For example, maybe I want to add a little bit more contrast to the sky area and leave the foreground area alone. Well, in order to do that, I could head down to my adjustment layers, grab a curves adjustment, and maybe pull that curve down, and that will give me the desired look for my sky. Obviously, the problem here is when I show you the before and after that not only did it affect the sky, but it also affect the foreground as well. There's a couple of ways that I could tackle this problem. I could use a gradient or on a mask, or I could make a selection, which is much quicker, of the foreground, and then hit delete on my keyboard, and it'll actually delete that adjustment from the foreground area. The problem with this though, if I deselect and zoom into where the selection meets the sky, you can see that clearly there's a visible line here. In other words, the blend was not very smooth. The transition between the top adjustment and the foreground is not very smooth. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to delete that adjustment and start all over. So here I am, I'm back to the place where I started. I've got an adjustment that's changing everything, and really I only want it to affect the sky. I don't want it to affect the foreground. So another way that I could go about fixing this is I could again make a selection just like I did before, and instead I could adjust my feathering to a particular desired result. The problem with this theory is that I can't actually see what is happening, and therefore I'd have to make an adjustment, apply it, and then make an adjustment again and apply it and keep doing that until I got what I wanted. To me, that's not really an efficient way to work. So instead, I'm going to use a quick mask. And the easiest way to access that is by hitting the letter Q on your keyboard. And when I do, you'll see this red mask pop up. This is just showing me where the effect is going to be applied. From here, what I can do is head on up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I can move the radius of this blur back and forth until I get exactly the transition I want. The nice thing about this is that I can actually see the feathering happening as I'm blurring it. So I'm just going to move this up to an even 160 pixels and I'm going to hit OK. Now nothing has happened, so I'm going to just go over to the mask on my curves adjustment. I'm going to hit Q to deactivate the quick mask, and I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard. And then I'm going to deselect. And now if I zoom into that area where the transition would have happened, you can clearly see that the line is gone, and that's because the mask has been feathered. If we take a quick look at the mask, you can see how nice and soft that transition from black to white is, and therefore feathering using the Gaussian blur and quick mask gave me exactly what I wanted. So now when I toggle the adjustment on and off, you can see I get a nice transition in the sky and the foreground hasn't been touched. I can continue to alter and adjust the foreground to my liking using some other Photoshop techniques. I hope you found this tip useful. It's one of my favorite techniques to use.